fuck's with these prices in these restaurants and bars in GTA? Like, not just Toronto. Toronto's like fucking nuts. Well, a bar the other day, like an espresso martini is like $28. I'm not drinking espresso martini. There are people with me, but what?
Most of Canadians don't know what tariffs did to Canadian economy. Look at this. One box of churros, $55 in Feb 2025. After that, same box, same product, same supplier, $93 a box.
You know, I've put my whole life savings into this place and I have nothing left. And yeah, it's definitely been crippling.
A new study from Dalhousie University shows that more than 4,000 restaurants in Canada are projected to close this year. That's after 7,000 bistros, cafes, and eateries shut their doors in 2025.
Something is happening to restaurants across Canada, and depending on who you listen to, the reason sounds completely different. Some restaurant owners say food costs are crushing them. Others are blaming rent, wages, insurance, fewer customers, construction, downtown offices, crime, immigration policies, and even the cost of simply doing business in Canada. And then there are customers saying, I understand that restaurants are struggling, but I can't afford these prices anymore. So who's actually right? I went through a bunch of videos from Canadians, restaurant owners, news reports, and creators talking about what's happening to the restaurant industry. And instead of me just telling you what I think, we're going to listen to them. I'll watch each video from beginning to end. Then I'll give you my honest take before we move to the next one. And before we get into it, thank you so much to everyone who has subscribed, joined this little community, and continues to support the channel. I genuinely appreciate you. If you're new here, please subscribe, like this video, share it with someone who has been complaining about restaurant prices, and let's get this conversation going. Because by the end of this video, I think we're going to see that this isn't simply a story about restaurants becoming expensive. There's something much bigger happening underneath it.
Over 4,000 restaurants are expected to close across Canada this year, after 7,000 already shut down last year. Not because people stopped loving food, but because staying open is becoming impossible. Behind the scenes, owners are getting crushed by rent, food costs, wages, and insurance. More than 40% are barely surviving or already losing money. They know prices are high, but if they raise them again, even fewer people will walk through the door. So it's not about growth anymore, it's about survival. But from the customer side, people say something else changed. Smaller portions, higher prices, less value, and tipping screens everywhere, even when you're picking up your own food. What used to be a casual night out now feels like a financial decision. So people aren't just cutting back, they're walking away. So what do you think? Are restaurants doing everything they can? Or has eating out just become too expensive to justify anymore?
Okay, so before we even start blaming restaurant owners or blaming customers, that statistic gives us the bigger picture. Thousands of restaurants are expected to disappear, while thousands already closed last year. And what caught my attention is that this isn't being presented as simply, restaurants aren't making enough money. We're talking about businesses being squeezed from multiple directions at the same time. And that brings me to the next video, because we're about to hear exactly what that pressure looks like from the restaurant owner's side.
Are struggling and having a hard time.
A new study from Dalhousie University shows that more than 4,000 restaurants in Canada are projected to close this year. That's after 7,000 bistros, cafes, and eateries shut their doors in 2025.
And what we're seeing right now are consumers under tremendous financial pressure. They're having a hard time buying food at the grocery store, so they're not spending as much time in food service.
Restaurants Canada says other major costs for establishments include rent and insurance. It says 41% of restaurants are operating at a loss or barely breaking even, but are working to keep costs low because they know customers are budgeting. As costs mount, some customers say they plan on making changes.
I probably plan on eating out less. It's gotten really expensive. It's nice to go once in a while, though.
I would say probably about the same, but spending less. Looking for cafes rather than full restaurants, looking for snacks rather than full meals.
Charlebois says legislation could help some of these businesses. For instance, last year's GST tax break could help if made permanent. That's something that Restaurants Canada says that they would like to see happen as well. Awesome.
And this is where I think we need to pause for a second. Because from the customer's perspective, we're seeing expensive meals and thinking, why don't these restaurants just lower their prices? But listen to what this owner is saying. His costs are going up. But he also knows that if he raises his prices too much, he could lose the very customers keeping his business alive. So he's stuck between two choices: raise prices and risk losing customers, or keep prices low and watch the profit disappear. And that's a problem we're going to hear repeatedly in these videos.
We're just missing a side salad for that donaire.
No, look down.
Down, thank you.
Through the past at Esquimalt Sax Point Public House, owner Damien Marino works with staff to bring out tasty food and drinks for patrons who've decided to go out and support their local restaurant.
Need another beer over there?
No, I've had enough. Thank
You want me to cut you off, yeah?
Despite a busy bar, the way restaurateurs like Marino have to operate is ever changing, with the cost of living going up for many who frequent his establishment.
It's definitely been difficult. There's been rising costs all across the board.
And those costs are creating the restaurant industry's breaking point, according to new data from Restaurants Canada. The director of Agri-Food Analytics Lab at Dalhousie University says sales can look strong on paper, but operators say costs are eating away profits.
A lot of people are putting more money into their cars. In fact, the average family right now will have to spend about $15 more on fuel this year related to transportation.
Charlebois says several major pressures are hitting the food and hospitality industry at the same time. Oil prices are climbing amid growing instability in the Middle East, and fertilizer costs continue to swing unpredictably. With so much more affordability pressures for restaurant owners and consumers, he says many operators are no longer talking about profitability and focusing more on survival, in some cases charging more per plate with less people coming through the door.
We estimated that in January we had 87,000 restaurants in Canada. That number will drop to 83,000. So a net loss of 4,000.
Everybody doing okay over here?
Back at the pub.
Guys are good. We're dancing.
Adjustments have to be made to secure margins, but Marino knows it's a dance between profitability and affordability for him and the customers.
With all these new fuel charges, fuel surcharges, and all these kind of things, we're finding that, a bag of onions has gone up 30%. A box of tomatoes has gone up 50%. So it's been really difficult.
Restaurant owners like Marino say the challenge now is not just serving good food, it's finding a way to keep the lights on without pricing customers out.
And now we're seeing where some of that pressure is coming from. It's not just one expense. Food is going up, fuel is going up, other operating costs are going up. But here's the problem. The customer's wallet doesn't automatically get bigger just because the restaurant's expenses do. So restaurants have to find a way to absorb those increases without pushing their customers away. And that brings us to a restaurant that is actually trying to find a middle ground.
There's always something that happens in the restaurant business. It's never dull.
Pagliacci's has been at the core of Victoria's robust restaurant scene for 47 years.
Lemon juice.
With the cost of food continuing to creep up month over month, Solomon Siegel says the time has come to make some changes to his menu.
It's a dance, and we have to be very careful about it.
He didn't want to alienate his loyal customer base by raising prices across the board, nor was he willing to sacrifice on quality or portion size. So he sat down with his staff,
broke down every dish, and we really looked at each one, and we asked ourselves, are these the best ingredients for the dish?
The dish, 20,000 leagues under the sea, is an example. They replaced halibut with a local whitefish, keeping its price steady.
So we did a rockfish and also cod, and I find those add so much more flavor to the dish.
After crunching the numbers, roughly 20 menu items actually had their prices reduced. Then there were 10 other dishes, like the shell game.
The quality is sashimi grade Hokkaido scallops.
The decision was made to stick with the large, flavorful scallop, as a replacement was only sacrificing the quality of the final product.
So that's an area where we had to give quite a hefty increase. I think that there was like a $10 increase to that pasta. I wanted to communicate that to everybody, so I wrote a letter to put in the menu,
explaining to his guests why some prices have changed, resulting in either an increase or a decrease.
I got a huge amount of responses that were people just deeply appreciating that.
According to the Not-for-Profit Industry Association, BC Food and Beverage, the industry contributes $14 billion annually to the provincial economy and employs more than 37,000 people.
We're a slave to the market as much as anybody.
Under rising cost pressures, the industry as a whole is under immense pressure for its survival. In order to adapt and keep one of Victoria's longest running restaurants open, Solomon has chosen to take a hard look at his menu with some price changes, while offering his loyal customer base full disclosure in the process.
I actually found this one interesting because this restaurant didn't simply say, everything's expensive, so we're increasing everything. They went through their menu and looked at where they could make changes without sacrificing quality. Some prices went down, others went up. And they explained those changes to their customers. I think that's important because customers may understand a price increase when they understand why it's happening. But even with all that effort, there's still a limit to how much a restaurant can charge. And this next creator shows just how dramatic some of those cost increases can be.
Most of Canadians don't know what tariffs did to Canadian economy. Look at this. One box of churros, $55 in Feb 2025. After that, same box, same product, same supplier, $93 a box. That's a 68% increase. This is just one item. Now multiply that across many items, every restaurant in Canada. And here's what nobody talking about. Small restaurants like us, we can't raise prices. Competition is insane. There's 10 other spots on the same street. You raise your price, even $1, customers disappear. So our price for churros is still same. But your grocery store, they don't care. They pass it straight to you, no hesitation. Because where else are you going to buy groceries? They know you have no choice. But they will not increase in one night. They will increase it slowly.
That churro example really puts the problem into perspective, because imagine you're a small restaurant and one of your supplies suddenly becomes dramatically more expensive. You have three choices. You absorb the increase and lose money. You raise your price and risk losing customers. Or you find a cheaper alternative and potentially sacrifice quality. And none of those options is particularly good. But now let's look at the other side of the equation, the customer. Because customers have their own limit too.
You know, restaurants are closing down like crazy in Canada. And I feel very, very bad for them because I've been there and I know exactly what it feels like. But at the same time, I got to tell you, those meal prices are really, really getting out of control. I mean, meals that used to go for $10 and $12 are now $20, $25 and even more. I mean, how do they expect us to afford that? I mean, I understand that there is the inflation and the tariffs and they're affecting businesses, but I feel like it's affecting us, the consumers, more than it's affecting the businesses, right? And I know that there are parents that would love to take their kids out to treat them. This weekend is Mother's Day, and there are lots of mothers who would love to go out to be treated and to feel special. But at the same time, we cannot afford it. And what those businesses don't understand is that the higher the prices are, the more people will stay away and people will start to cook from home. And at the end of the day, it's a lot more affordable to cook from home, and it's a lot healthier too, because at least you know what you're putting in your food and you know exactly what's going in your body.
And honestly, I think this is where both sides of the argument can be true. You can understand why a restaurant needs to charge more and still not be able to afford the meal. That's the reality for a lot of people. At some point, eating out stops being a casual decision and becomes something you have to budget for. And when enough customers make that decision, restaurants feel it. So we've now heard the basic cycle. Costs go up, restaurants raise prices, customers pull back, restaurants lose traffic, and the pressure gets even worse. But we're not done, because there are several other things happening around these businesses that make the situation even more complicated.
So Toronto lost more than 2,000 restaurants in the last year, and if you're wondering why, this is the reason. See, in Canada, 10% of the population now drives 50% of consumer spending. Now, basically, people are either saving up to go to high-end restaurants like Harbor 60 right here, or they're going to very affordable places serving meals under $8 like this one here. Businesses at the middle are the ones that are dying the fastest. The gap will get even wider over the years, so you have to pick a line right now. So people might say, hey, those places like Earl's are not hurting them. Well, you have to understand these businesses have been running for decades now. They have economies of scale. They know what they're doing. You have to factor in that a lot of these established businesses own the building. Now they're not exposed to the higher end. And honestly, altogether, if you can stay away from restaurant business, I would stay the fuck away from them completely.
Fam, these greedy goofs need to give up and stop pushing this propaganda. Fam, honestly, if your business cannot survive without hiring 90% illegal immigrants, you need to shut it down or just shut the fuck up, brother. Oh, brother, the Canadian Crash Out Chronicles continue. Restaurants struggle as cuts to Canadian immigration inflict more pain to the industry. What industry, brother? What industry, brother? The Indian industry? Make it make sense. Fam, the only restaurants being affected by illegal immigrants being deported are restaurants like Tim Hortons, A&W. You already know. Basically, all the restaurants that have gone to shit, you know what I mean? Customer service horrible, horrible standards, you know what I mean? Dirty inside, you know what I mean? Like, brother, close that shit if you want to close that shit, brother. Nobody cares. Not for real though, fam. I get it. Canada was built on immigrants, right? Like, but listen, fam, youth employment is at an all-time high. And all you guys care about is hiring these rusty, dusty, crusty ass illegal immigrants, you know what I mean? That can't even speak English, that probably have SA charges, that probably fleeing the country, you know what I mean? To come over here and work at Tim Hortons just so you can pay them less and collect change. There's a bunch of kids born in Canada from immigrants that can't get jobs out here, you know what I mean? So what about them? You know what I mean? Youth employment's at an all-time high. What about them? At the end of the day, fam, nobody feels sorry for none of these restaurants, brother. You guys should have stacked up your money when you were capitalizing off the loophole, brother. Nobody feels sorry for you, brother. Nah, brother. That temporary foreign worker program check hits different. That money's too sweet. You know what I mean? You're not trying to go back to these regular Canadian citizens paying them minimum wage. You know what I mean? 18 bucks an hour. Nah, you're trying to pay them 9 bucks an hour. You know what I mean? I take your 9 off the top.
At least 15 bars and restaurants have closed in Edmonton this year alone. What's going on?
Downtown in general, 104th Street, vibrancy hasn't been the same since COVID. With subsidies and government support and loans, was able to keep most businesses and myself afloat when that comes due, and we still don't have the same traffic downtown that we once did. There's, bigger decisions that you have to make.
Everybody went from downtown being their best locations to their worst locations. And we also now can compare for us because we've been in other markets for 15 years. And as we're investing and growing in other markets, we can compare what those markets look like to Edmonton. And I think one of the things that blows people away is our downtown Calgary Greta did 3.5 times the revenue that Edmonton Greta did.
When you get people back to office, it increases the businesses. Return to office and we see a bump, but we have the city of Edmonton holding back and saying like, oh no, we can't. We don't want to ruffle feathers. We don't want to mandate people back in the office. And I'm like, okay, then are you part of the problem or are you part of the solution? It's that simple.
Have your restaurant habits changed? What is it? Cost? Parking? Safety? Something else? Let us know in the comments.
Is downtown Edmonton cooked? There's yet another restaurant in our downtown core that has announced that they will be closing their doors. Wilfred's in the Brewery District announced they're going to be closing their doors on July 26. They're not the only restaurants in downtown to have closed this year. I think this year we have about 17 restaurants in downtown core that have shut down. A really good example here is going to be Kazana. Now, they had fantastic Indian food, and unfortunately the construction surrounding them was just absolutely treacherous. You cannot get anywhere near that restaurant, and it's just very disappointing and disheartening. There's also a plethora of factors that go into why restaurants or businesses in our downtown core go under. But one common denominator is going to be that our downtown core is just empty. There's nothing bringing people downtown anymore. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on all these restaurants closing downtown and what's causing all this.
Short of taking a lie detector test, I'm not sure what else more I can do.
Glenn Timchuk opened Hogtown Smoke on Toronto's Colburn Street in 2017 to much fanfare.
Things were okay. They weren't bad.
Then a series of setbacks. The first City News reported on back in 2019.
Then we got hit with construction. They did sewer repairs.
The city project right outside his doors, forcing the restaurant to lose a ton of business.
No one compensates the poor small business for that.
Less than a year later, things only got worse.
COVID hit. Yeah. Restaurants were already struggling. Then finally COVID hits and we were first to close down. I had dumped my entire life savings into the restaurant. I mean, everything I've had since I was a kid, I saved up for this. Yeah. So to lose it all is absolutely devastating.
Now a new struggle. Timchuk claimed his business losses to the CRA.
In my case, I lost almost 1.5 million, so I'm claiming half of that towards business loss. They looked it over and they denied me. They gave me a list of reasons.
Among them,
how do we know it was even a Canadian business? How do we know it closed down for good? Well, here's landlord letters of them chasing us for money. It closed down.
The CRA also says Timchuk failed to provide loan documents from shareholders when filing for the losses.
I can tell you that no small businesses are keeping a shareholder loan ledger. You can't punish a small business because they didn't have a small, a loan ledger.
In its decision, the CRA says it's simply following the law, stating Timchuk failed to provide several other documents needed to prove a loss under the Income Tax Act. All claims Timchuk denies.
Short of taking a lie detector test, I'm not sure what else more I can do.
So he's taking the CRA to court. While he knows losing is a chance, it's one he's willing to take.
I have to go to the bitter end, whether I can afford lawyers or not. I have to keep fighting. Yeah. And I don't want other people to have to do what I'm doing. It's not fair what they're doing. Yeah.
Due to a backlog, his lawsuit, which was filed last year, won't make it to court until 2027.
As always, if you have an issue, story, or question you'd like us to look into, reach out by visiting the Speaker's Corner tab on the City News website. Pat Taney, City News.
An hour before the Pemberton Station pub opens, manager Cameron Eisner jots down the day's specials and sports matches as he prepares to welcome the day's patrons.
It's a place where everyone kind of does know your name, you know.
The pub opened in 1986. Eisner has managed the place for more than 2 decades. The bar is adorned with TVs and memorabilia for every sports fan. While Eisner has poured everything into the business, he says it's become too expensive to run and will close in 2 months.
You know, I've put my whole life savings into this place and I have nothing left, and yeah, it's definitely been crippling.
Last call is June 28th.
So Kelowna's losing yet another business and restaurant, and this time I'm really upset. They're saying it's some immigration issues and clerical issues. The Romanor Bistro is going to be closing as of December because they need to go back to Italy, and this sucks. They boast some of the best Italian food I've ever had, some of the best food in the city, great atmosphere over at the RCA, and now they're going to be gone. But one thing that I really love about these guys is going to be the worst part to see. Their Google reviews. They leave some of the best replies on Google reviews because the odd time, yes, they'll mess up and they'll say, hey, that's our fault, we're sorry. But then other times, they will call people out for just leaving a stupid review or being a bad customer. In this review, they call somebody a snob. I'm just sad. I like them and I like their food. This is a travesty for Kelowna.
If you know, you know, and if you don't, now you do. Now, Ricardo's Hideaway, just off of 17th Avenue, announced its closing at the end of the summer. Very sad. It's been open since 2016. And one interesting thing about it, it actually was essentially the first contemporary tiki bar in all of the prairies. So that's kind of neat. Aside from that, I like restaurant history, especially in Calgary. And one thing a lot of people don't know is National's right here. Ricardo's is right here. They actually originally were the same space. They still do share a kitchen space that cooks food for both concepts. But if you lived in Calgary for a long time, long before National opened in 2012, you'll know that this huge space used to be called Mercury. And it was a very popular bar for, I don't like to say it was a nightclub, but a bar open for many years since mid-90s, I believe. And when it closed down, it sat empty for a while, and then they opened National, and then this was still empty for years after that, and they decided to come up with a fun concept. Anyway, it's been around for 10 years, which is commendable. Any sort of milestone, 10 years and on, is pretty awesome for a restaurant. I do think because this is all owned by Concord Group, these concepts, I think that this is going to be flipped into something else real soon, so I think you should stay tuned to whatever socials that they use to talk about that, because I guarantee you a new bar in Ricardo's Hideaway will be announced probably the next month or two.
Never imagined we would have to read these words. After years of hard work, sacrifice, goal, and countless moments shared with our community that will come and support us, we unfortunately find ourselves in the position of having to leave Canada due to a series of administrative issues and errors that occurred throughout our immigration process. We were unable to achieve the outcome we had hoped for. We did everything within our power to find a solution, investing time, energy, and resources. But today we must accept a reality we never want to face. This is not a decision we have chosen to make. If it were up to us, we will continue building our future here, working every day to grow the project we believed in from the very beginning. We would like to thank everyone who has supported us throughout this journey, our guests, our staff, our friends, and everyone who believes in us. Each of you has left a mark on our lives, and we will carry these memories with us forever. With great sadness, we must also announce that the restaurant will permanently close its doors at the end of December. This is a painful, very painful decision. Until then, we will continue to do what we have always done. Welcome you with passion, professionalism, and gratitude. And make these final months as meaningful as possible for all of us. We will leave this country with heavy hearts, but also with gratitude for everything we have experienced here. We don't know yet what the future holds, but we know that we will face the next chapter with the same determination that has guided us this far. Thank you, Kelowna. Thank you, Canada. Danilo e Angela.
These are the type of people we need in this country. It honestly pains me to see a system in this country that you constantly see try to keep immigrants in this country that do violent and heinous crimes. Our judges, our justice system, all prioritizes in keeping these people in. And then when you have an immigrant family like this that runs one of the best restaurants in Kelowna, you saw some of the videos, it is absolutely beautiful. I actually went into the restaurant as part of the Rotary Arts Center. Absolutely stunning. And this man is a stand-up gentleman. And this is a family that's built a successful business here, that's been part of the community, that assimilated into the city, that did everything that they could to be active members of contributing members of society. And these are the people that we end up deporting because of administrative hurdles, administrative errors. Are you kidding me? Like, this is such a shame. These are the type of people we need in this country.
And after watching all of these videos, I think we can finally see the bigger picture. Because this isn't just about restaurants. At first, you might look at these stories and think, okay, restaurants are getting expensive, some restaurants are closing, and people are eating out less. But when you put all of these experiences together, there's something much bigger happening. We're seeing restaurant owners dealing with higher food costs, higher rent, higher wages, insurance, fuel, and all the other expenses that come with running a business. And at the exact same time, customers are struggling with their own rising costs. So the restaurant owner looks at the numbers and says, I have to raise my prices. The customer looks at that same menu and says, I can't afford this anymore. And that's where the problem becomes a cycle. The restaurant raises prices to survive. Customers eat out less, the restaurant loses customers, revenue falls, and then the owner has to make even more difficult decisions. Some are changing their menus, some are reducing portions, some are finding cheaper ingredients, some are closing completely, and some, like we've seen in these stories, have literally put their entire life savings into these businesses and are walking away with almost nothing. And honestly, one thing that really stood out to me is that not every restaurant owner in these videos is simply complaining. Some are actually trying to adapt. We saw a restaurant owner who went through every single dish on his menu, changed ingredients where he could, reduced prices on some items, increased others, and then actually explained those changes to his customers. And I think that's important because it shows that there isn't always a simple villain in this story. The customer isn't necessarily the problem. The restaurant owner isn't necessarily the problem. A lot of these people are simply trying to survive in an environment where everything costs more. But then there's another side to this conversation. Customers are also saying, listen, I understand that your costs are going up, but I can't keep absorbing all of those increases. And I completely understand that too. Because if a meal that used to be an occasional affordable treat now costs $25, $30, $40 or more, people are going to start asking themselves whether eating out is worth it. And that's why some people are choosing cheaper restaurants, ordering less, cooking at home, or simply staying home. And when enough people do that, the restaurant industry feels it. We've also heard about empty downtown cores, construction, safety concerns, changing work habits, immigration and labor issues, business closures, and even restaurants leaving Canada because of immigration problems. So there isn't one single explanation, and I think that's probably the biggest lesson from all these videos. Canada's restaurant problem is not one problem, it's a pileup of problems. The cost of doing business is going up. The cost of living is going up. Customers have less disposable income. Businesses can't always pass their costs on without losing customers. And when that happens long enough, some businesses simply don't make it. And that's why those thousands of projected restaurant closures matter. Not because every restaurant is going to disappear, but because they tell us something about the pressure businesses are feeling right now. For me, the question isn't simply, why are restaurants so expensive? The bigger question is, how do we create an economy where the person running the restaurant can make a living, the employees can earn a decent wage, and the customer can still afford to walk through the door? Because right now, based on everything we've just watched, it feels like everybody's being squeezed from somewhere. The business owner is squeezed, the worker is squeezed, and the customer is squeezed. And if all three sides are struggling at the same time, then maybe we shouldn't just be asking restaurants to lower their prices. Maybe we need to start asking what is making it so expensive for everyone in the first place. And that's where I want to hear from you. Have you stopped eating out because of the prices? Are you still supporting your favorite local restaurants even though it's getting more expensive? Or have you reached the point where you simply can't justify the cost anymore? And if you're a restaurant owner or you work in the food industry, I'd especially love to hear your perspective. Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you found this conversation interesting, please like this video, share it with someone who has been talking about the rising cost of living, and subscribe to the channel. We're building this community one conversation at a time, and your support really does help this channel grow.